Obama's back in the news. She's obsessing over race again. I know you're shocked. Shocked. Here's a little bit of that from the Storehouse and Friends podcast this past Sunday. Top 54.
If I hear of someone whose fashion that I like and I know that they're a person of color, I try to make it a point. But the clothes have to be available. You know, I think we can all do some work to think about that balance in our wardrobes. You know, what does our closet look like and who's in it?
Megyn Kelly is not holding back in the wake of a Michelle Obama remark that surfaced online and soon went viral. Some say the video is obviously racist, while others say it is misrepresented and taken out of context. So what did Michelle actually say? Where did the quote come from? And why is it showing up everywhere? Once you hear the full quote, you'll see why everyone is debating it. So stay there.
And then we live in a culture where people with power prey on fear to get more power. Again, she's talking about very clearly demonization of black people by white people so they can get more power. She's talking about Trump. I want to make you all afraid of each other. How does he do that? How? She really needs to take a hard look at the Democratic Party, which is obsessed with skin color.
If you enjoy this, please subscribe to the channel. You may be shocked at how beneficial it is. Michelle Obama has a gift for imparting important lessons to the public through everyday decisions. This time, she focused that attention on something that most people would consider simple and personal. What you choose to wear.
Don't you think, Britt, like the average person is just, do I like this or don't? No one's thinking about the skin color of the designer. Like, that's such a weird thing to ask us to focus on. And in that way, clothing is very meritocratic.
It just screams privileged. I don't have time, or I'm not privileged enough to have time to go and find out exactly what melanin type was a part of constructing my jeans. I just buy jeans because they look good.
The reaction was immediate and strong since she didn't just discuss her personal style or praise a few brands she loved. She presented it as something that people were expected to do.
Your time in the White House. Okay, I don't care about skin color or how we pray or how we love. We're all the same. What keeps us from seeing that is fear, right? I don't know you. You're different. She's very clearly talking about how white people view black people. So I've got to be afraid of you, and I have to make sure you don't come into my space. Okay, if anything, what we're seeing on college campuses and elsewhere right now are black affinity groups or Hispanic affinity groups into which
she urged customers to consciously make sure that their wardrobes include pieces created by black producers and other underrepresented designers, as if a closet were intended to function as a social responsibility checklist.
Reminding people that we're normal people. Yes, we're black. But we bleed red and we love red, white, and blue.
Oh my God. Everyone knows that. You don't have to keep reminding us that you're black, just like your friend Karine Jean-Pierre. You have to work it into every single conversation and also raise it as a way of saying the country's racist. We're normal, even though we're black.
Megyn, on the other hand, strongly disagreed with the idea because she thought Michelle Obama's framing forced race where it shouldn't be, not because she didn't think black designers were competent.
Or somehow you've fallen down on your inclusive whatever duties. Do you do that, Will? I'm sure when you got dressed today, did you look into Patagonia? Like, what is the color, the skin color of those behind the brand?
Oh, yeah. If they're not white, I won't buy it. Yeah, it has to be from white people. It's imperative. Yeah. What ridiculous. They say there's all these race issues in America, and racism is the biggest issue, and we have to fight against these things. And you have the most famous people.
Megyn believes the take is so disjointed because of this. It assumes that the average person does not purchase like a regular person seeking fairly priced, long-lasting, and useful products for everyday life, but rather like a rich activist with a personal stylist. This viewpoint simply doesn't make sense. The first thing Megyn really points out is the obsession with race as the standard way to assess even the most simple choices. I found a talented designer and wanted to share them with you is an entirely different statement, and said you should deliberately stock your closet based on the race of the brand's creators.
She's promoting this fashion book that she's doing, which is such a joke. This is like me doing a book on basketball. Like, Michelle Obama is not a fashion icon, no matter what Anna Wintour tried to tell us. That's obvious. No one's inspired by her fashion at all. She knows nothing about fashion, same as I know nothing about sports. Okay? That some of us just need to admit our weaknesses. But we have to go along with this. She's out there lecturing us on wokeness and America and fashion. Okay. And here's the latest offering as she sits down with Stephen Colbert.
She's out front offering lessons on social trends, clothing choices, and the state of America. And this time it happens during a sit-down with Stephen Colbert. The discussion suggests that things like craftsmanship, originality, or even simple usefulness start to matter less once a racial filter is placed on everyday items such as shoes or sweaters. Instead of personal taste or practicality, the focus shifts to whether a product fits an outside expectation. In moments like this, well-known figures can unintentionally draw lines where none naturally exist. From there, the talk moves to how this kind of messaging affects society overall. Megyn argues that when famous voices casually introduce race into ordinary conversations, it often leads to the opposite of what's intended. Rather than encouraging unity or understanding, it sparks tension and puts people on edge before any real disagreement begins. Many start to feel watched or judged over the smallest decisions.
Don't you think, Brett, like the average person is just, do I like this or don't? No one's thinking about the skin color of the designer. Like, that's such a weird thing to ask us to focus on. And in that way, clothing is very meritocratic.
It just screams privileged. I don't have time, or I'm not privileged.
Megyn explains that only someone with a lot of wealth could expect every clothing choice to be treated like a political message. And that mindset doesn't just feel unrealistic, it pushes most people away, since they don't have the time or resources to think that way. She also explores the quiet, unintended effects of turning designers into symbols instead of creators. When shoppers are encouraged to care more about a designer's identity than the quality or originality of the work, that designer is reduced to a box to be checked. Megyn warns that this approach can actually harm the very artists it claims to support. Rather than being respected for their talent, they become tools for signaling moral approval through purchases. Skill and creativity take a back seat to proving loyalty to a social idea, which drains the joy from truly enjoying art and replaces it with performative buying. Her argument points to a bigger issue. Shopping shouldn't feel like joining a political movement.
About people like Michelle Obama and like the ones who are constantly talking about how hard everything is and how, like, you know, remember she's clapped back at Sheryl Sandberg's Lean In, you know, and there was plenty to criticize with Sheryl Sandberg's Lean In, but like Michelle Obama at that time was like, you know, that doesn't always work. And she wasn't talking about for working class people. She was talking about for black people. She had to play the race card when she was first lady, that, you know, you can't just get what you want if you go after it. This is just...
Megyn uses Brit's example to underline her main argument, explaining that identity labels have slowly turned into a kind of social currency that can quietly encourage an us versus them mindset. Even when intentions are good, this habit can cause harm by turning everyday life into a constant mental checklist centered on identity. Megyn argues that this doesn't move society forward, it pulls it backward by training people to search for differences first and placing ordinary actions under constant scrutiny. In this light, clothing stops being about enjoyment or personal style and instead becomes a stage where every choice is judged as a win or a loss. The panel also points out how strange it is to demand this level of awareness while delivering the message from a place of wealth and comfort, exposing a clear gap between the speaker and the audience. When someone powerful and well-off tells average people to plan their wardrobes around representation, it can sound disconnected from real life. Most people don't shop at high-end boutiques, lack access to niche stores, and don't have the time to turn buying clothes into a research assignment. Megyn notes that this disconnect often leads people to resist, sigh in frustration, or feel shut out altogether.
See that hideous outfit she was wearing? I'm sorry.
That's what having too much money does for you.
I've just never met somebody so ungrateful in all my life. And what did she start it off with? People said I was hateful. Because you are. She can't stand America. She definitely can't stand Barack. And I don't think she likes herself very much either. So she's been doing this nonstop tour. And I just think there's a strain. She's woke. He's woke. There's a strain in the woke that leads you to be absolutely miserable, which is why they too should be.
Megyn argues that this approach only fuels avoidable tension and bitterness. When every purchase, preference, or small decision is treated like a public statement, people stop choosing things freely and start second-guessing themselves. Over time, they grow tired, guarded, and overly cautious, while the simple joy of daily life is replaced by worry about how others might judge them. As the discussion wraps up, Megyn's critique moves beyond fashion and points to a wider pattern in Michelle Obama's way of thinking. She suggests that the former First Lady often frames ordinary choices through the lens of race, which Megyn sees as a problem because it turns personal decisions into tests of moral or social awareness. In her view, this becomes less about guidance and more about teaching culture and behavior.
You know, you need a Maureen Callahan, or dare I say, an MK. You need somebody who's living a great life, getting after it, putting points on the board, and not spending too much of their time navel gazing into how I don't have a tail. It's really sad, right? Like, that's her. She's an Eeyore. And it is, I think, her depression. And she's not somebody we should be seeking guidance or enlightenment from.
The panel goes back to discussing the wider implications of this perspective. Asking people to constantly evaluate their clothing from an identity standpoint does not promote peace or understanding. Instead, it fosters distancing, defensiveness, and mistrust. Unintentionally, public figures who display this conduct make it harder for people to relate to each other in a natural way. At the conclusion, Megyn's message is clear. Michelle Obama's fashion advice highlights a bigger issue. It illustrates the detrimental consequences of imposing identity-first thinking as a moral norm. This criticism has nothing to do with respecting innovation or promoting overlooked talent. It has to do with not viewing every personal choice as an ethical obligation. According to Megyn, life shouldn't be reduced to identity math. Decision-making, shopping, and appreciating innovation should all be unrestricted. Purchases should be made out of appreciation, practicality, and preference rather than out of a desire to pass a moral test. And talent should be valued for its own sake.
We haven't lived up to their high standards, and we're essentially being called racist. Here's Michelle Obama, who's promoting a new book on her special fashion, and sat down with People magazine and said the following in SOT 26.
As women of color, that the way our hair naturally grows out of our head, it's beautiful. But if we struggle to make it look like the standard, that means we are spending thousands of hours and lots of money straightening out what is naturally curly.
She says it's not so much about promoting variety and innovation as it is about making everyday life a continual moral test. It isolates rather than unites, elevates ideological messaging over practical living, and turns simple personal choices into ones that appear required. For most people, the main objective of shopping is to get clothing that fits, works, and lasts. It's not about looking into each designer's history or figuring out how each buy shows social consciousness. When a well-known person presents these selections as a measure of morality, it raises pressure, fosters hostility, and creates needless division, leading people to overthink choices that should be simple. Megyn argues that a stronger, more functioning culture results from letting people focus on quality, creativity, and personal choice. Instead than being a yardstick, clothing should be a way to express oneself. People should be trusted to make choices based on taste, practicality, and sincere appreciation, rather than continuously navigating a hierarchy of identification categories. This approach allows culture to emerge naturally while restoring personal autonomy and joy to even the most fundamental activities, including making decisions.